So thank you, Riza, and good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to the College of Engineering's Next Level Research Showcase. As Riza said, I'm Rich Corsi, and it's my pleasure and honor to serve as the Dean of the College of Engineering here at UC Davis. And in just a few weeks, it'll be 1 year since we actually launched the College of Engineering's Next Level Strategic Research Vision with the rollout of 4 research impact areas that are informing investments in faculty, seed funding, and new partnerships. And those 4 areas are revolutionizing energy systems, strengthening climate resilience, transforming mobility, and advancing human health. There are also 3 important cross-cutting themes that touch each of these 4 impact areas. They include intelligent systems and automation, tools at the nano and micro scales, and a deep commitment to engineering for all, to leave no community behind, and develop engineering solutions that improve quality of life for everybody. Engineering a better world is at the core of our vision, and I can only say after 18 months as Dean, wow, this is who our community is. We have a community of really talented faculty and researchers that really embody this aspiration. In fact, in just a few minutes, you'll get to hear directly from our faculty about 8 highly innovative projects that were awarded seed funding in conjunction with the rollout of our strategic research vision a year ago. And those faculty will share the progress they've made and the cutting-edge research challenges that lay ahead. I'm so grateful that you've joined us today to learn more about the College of Engineering, our next level strategic research vision, and more. And so to our faculty, associate deans, and academic leaders from other colleges and schools, industry partners, collaborators at national laboratories, alumni, thank you for being here. It means a lot for us all to come together in person. And the fun's just getting started. We also have a fantastic panel discussion. We'll have networking reception and more on this agenda for today. Before I close, I want to recognize a few people. I certainly want to recognize the staff that have been responsible for pulling this together. So thank you to Alan, thank you to Paul, thank you to Molly. I really appreciate your efforts. Everything you do is golden. I really appreciate it. And I also want to acknowledge Associate Dean Riza D'Souza for her really deep commitment to championing our strategic research vision. She has worked tirelessly since she's become Associate Dean for Research to advance and to amplify our research impact. And I'm grateful for her many contributions to the college. And with that, I'm going to shut up and let Riza come up here and kick off the presentation. So thank you.
Thank you. Thanks everybody for being here. So we do have an action-packed agenda. So just to give you a run-up show, we're going to have 4 short talks, and then we're going to have a 5-minute break to just stretch your legs. And then we'll come back for 3 talks, and we'll have a 10-minute break with some coffee and cookies. And we'll come back for our panel discussion, and then we'll have the funnest part of the evening, the panel. So without further ado, I want to go ahead and introduce our first speaker. So our first speaker is Marina Radulaski, and she's going to give us a short 5-minute talk. Everyone else will give 15-minute presentations, and please feel free to ask questions at the end. So Marina is one of our rising superstars. She is an assistant professor in electrical and computer engineering. She's the recipient of the 2023 Air Force Office of Scientific Research Young Investigator Program. She is a 2022 Google Research Scholar Award in quantum computing. She has a 2021 NSF Career Award and the 2021 One Quantum Women in Quantum Leading Researcher Award. So she's going to tell us about her vision moving forward. So thank you, Marina.
Thank you so much, Riza. Do I click here to start? Yeah. I see my screen here, but not on the big screen.
Technical difficulties already. You should go to the
Thank you so much. And so today I'm here to report on our development of Quantum Information Science and Engineering Center. I am speaking on the team of Agri-Chemical, myself, but also we speak in front of 17 faculty of engineering and from letters and sciences that form this core community. And what the next level idea funding helped us is what is summarizing this recent news. That is that to set the global stage for quantum information science and technology at UC Davis. So we already started with having a good community of people with good ideas and also a good set of core courses. But with this funding, we were able to organize our community from within through strategic meetings and mailing lists and a really good updated website and even YouTube channel. But also externally, it get much more visibility to UC Davis as a center for quantum information science and technologies. And so for that, we managed to invite a lot of high-profile visitors from Berkeley all the way to Switzerland who are involved with high-profile experimental and theoretical research in quantum information. And we offered their presentations as a part of a course that students could take for credit. And this way we managed to engage about 40 students from many different departments, both graduate and undergraduate level, as well as other researchers on campus. In addition to that, students could get career advice during the dedicated lunch with faculty for visiting. And also we had a lot of ideations going forward for research between our groups and our visitors' groups. I should also mention our visitors also were not just from academia, we had very high-profile researchers from Google and national labs. So what were the outcomes of some of these? First, and I guess we hear a lot about these multi-campus research grants that came out of it. We have 3 new quantum computing research grants between UC Davis, Berkeley, Merced, and Santa Cruz in one of the UC's MRPI centers. Then collaborations with Sandia QuIST-Quantum that spreads between 2 continents. And then UC Partnership for Computational Transformation funded by Noise Initiative between UC Davis and Berkeley. Students got very motivated by all these activities and they went on to take quantum information courses, do research with different faculty on our roster, and be very active with a quantum student organization, QCAD. Moreover, they organized a quantum hackathon, which was not just for UC Davis students, but also students from Berkeley and UCLA. And then also continued on to pursue their graduate and undergraduate dreams and got offers from quantum startups and Stanford undergraduate and Harvard graduate programs. So we have quite a nice track record here. Now, what are the opportunities and challenges that lie ahead as we go toward building a QuIST center at UC Davis? So first one is really scoring these large grants that are offered in quantum information field for over next decade. And so there we have a lot of good ideas, and then also a few challenges are in finding suitable partners from other institutions that can really help us strengthen that external network, and then also obtaining preliminary results that will make us more competitive. Another direction we're also interested in is educational, and that is to develop either a master's or designated emphasis program at UC Davis in quantum information science and technologies. There we have already done a lot of groundwork, but also if we compare what other universities have done, because this is a very popular area and a place also where we can support our bottom line, other universities, including UCLA, have these programs where they charge $50,000 per student. And so this can really both respond to a growing need among students to get expert training in this field and also for our university to get some financial support. That is all I have for today. Thank you so much for attention and for support.
That they'd like to ask?
There is a question.
I have a quick question. So on your last point there, that equipment costs are greater than $100,000. What equipment are you specifically working with?
Thank you very much for the question. So far the courses we've developed are either theoretical or experiments are run on IBM quantum computers, which is already modern, but it would be great if we had some more hands-on experimental equipment to control quantum bits so students can really get that experimental experience, which is not just limited to research in specific groups, but can be spread out over many more students. And so for that, we could either get some seed funding to build equipment in our labs that could be then offered to students who take courses, or we could go ahead, spend some more money and get already plug-and-play solutions, which could then, we could teach already tomorrow with those tools.
Thank you.
Thank you. So we have our next presenter, who is Professor Ambarish Kulkarni, and he is an assistant professor in chemical engineering. He's a recipient of the 2021 Career Award, the 2021 College of Engineering Outstanding Junior Faculty Research Award, the 2021 Best Teaching Award, and the 2020 Grad Mentoring Award. So we're just getting started here. Thank you, Ambarish. Take it away.
It's really bright on the screen, right? It's not just me. All right. Thank you so much to Royce and Dean Corsi for organizing this. Being part of the Davis community is really one of the most fun things I've done. So that's exciting. So what I'm going to talk about is how we can overcome the value of debt in heterogeneous catalysis, or more importantly, how to establish a catalysis-focused center here at Davis. How many PhD students are there in the room? Excellent. Cool. So when I did my PhD, I was like, all right, I achieved so much. I specifically worked on air capture of CO2, which is now really popular, and also on making fuel cells more efficient. Turns out that once I achieved my PhD, I thought, it really changes the world. Not much has changed, right? These are just some climate disasters from the past year, and you see that we face many challenges. And turns out we are running out of time. These disasters are just getting more and more normalized. One of the key challenges in my neck of the woods is that all of these technologies that are proven in the lab, it takes a long time, order of decades, to get them to actually scale up and have an impact. This specifically is called the value of debt in material science and batteries, and it exists everywhere. So what you see is a lot of our work is focused on this proof of concept, but going to the demonstration, navigating the regulatory requirements, scaling it up, and then actually making money after large-scale manufacturing is extremely challenging. So here's how I see strategies for overcoming this value of debt in catalysis, but also more broadly in material science. With the advent of machine learning and advances in quantum computing and other related aspects, predicting the properties of materials is never been easier. The challenge is making them in the lab and validating them quickly. This requires us to think not just about doing the research, but also training the workforce, and also doing research with the idea that we want to actually scale it up and create an actual technology. This requires changes in how funding is offered. Is a 3-year project the best idea? It depends. This requires us to develop models that allow data-driven and physics-informed scale-up, and then that is what actually can result in something, a technology that has value, and then hopefully some of this will flow back to the college as well. So the goal in our group, and the group that I'm leading, is to accelerate the development of new functional materials and novel processes, and we want to do it, and I'd argue that we have to do it through team-oriented academic and industrial collaborations. The idea is that in order to create true innovation, we need the theorists, which is me and a few folks over here, to work with industry, experimentalists, and the national labs. What we are trying to do is to give the emerging technologies and functional materials a fighting chance, and we need to do it quick, else all of them will fall and die in the valley of death. The things that we do are aspects of data science, simulations and collaborations, and also multi-scale modeling, which allows us to access different time scales as required by the problem. So here's an executive summary of where we are. So the goal is to focus a center at UC Davis that is focused on the hydrogen and the CO2 shot from DOE. How many of us are familiar with these two aspects? Few people. Alright, this is a really big deal in DOE. Alright, anything you submit to DOE now, from chemical engineering and other engineering disciplines, this is a really important factor. So let's do a quick SWOT analysis. The strengths that we have are a pretty strong collaborative team that's focused on catalysis science. I've listed a few folks here: chronometer, runner-bomb gates, and we also have connections to national labs who are also adjunct faculty members in the form of Simon Baer, C.Y. Chen from Chevron, David Osborne, and Neil Goldman. We also have an NSF Phase 2 IUCRC. It's an industry university cooperative research center, and we are in regular talks with industry partners such as Aramco, Exxon, Dow, Shell, all of the folks who are actually leading the innovation in these spaces. So that's a really big strength for us. The main challenge that I have been facing is being on top of this stuff, okay? Calls come out from DOE and NSF and we're like, oh my god, we have 2 months to submit something, and that's really hard. It's very reactive. And I think the key weakness that we have, or that from my perspective, is being proactive for going towards these goals. The opportunities, as I emphasized, are the DOE Earthshots. There was a recent FOA on accelerating innovations in emerging technologies. That's a lab-based FOA, which means it's pretty likely that a university-focused FOA will show up soon as well. And we also should take advantage of our friends in the ag sciences who are world-renowned in the field. The threats, we missed the boat, alright? There's so many calls where it's like we can't do this and it's just too late and we just do not put in a strong enough proposal. I'd like to stop doing that. I'm tired of it. It's really disappointing because you put in all the work and then you're like, oh, it's such a weak proposal, right? Not fun. So what are we doing? What I'd like to try and do, and that's what we're using the funds for, is to try out or pilot a model to facilitate bottom-up collaboration across College of Engineering. The way I think we want to do this is by teaching a course that's optimistically titled Clean Tech and Sustainability. It's something that I'm organizing in spring 2023. The idea is to provide an overview of the emerging technologies in the hydrogen and the carbon dioxide space. I have chatted with folks in order to provide guest lectures from folks in consulting, the traditional petrochemical giants, national labs, new startups, and also PIs from UC Davis. The idea is our students are really smart, but we need to provide them a platform to really showcase their skills. So I see this as a co-listed, cross-listed course that includes both undergrads as well as grads, where we use the undergrads' creativity and the ability to just look at the landscape and come up with novel ideas, and at the same time train the graduate students to figure out what are the research problems that can be identified in these emerging technologies. In that way, we can start training our grads to write proposals for themselves, for folks who are interested in academia, but also provide the seed information that we need to write a good, strong grant proposal. So instead of going directly for these large grants, which are hard and which require a record of collaboration and collaborative publications, I think it's very valuable to use this to submit many 1 or 2 or 3 PI grants to our known directorates at NSF or DOE. And doing that many times, I think, will result in the formation of centers, and hopefully that's an organic way and a transferable strategy across different disciplines to get this going. The other part that we are using this money for is to go after a Phase 3 IUCRC. We are hosting a meeting in South SF where we have a number of these industry partners coming in, and then some of them, along with the existing PIs, are showing up at UC Davis in May. we had someone from Shell Amsterdam visit us. He basically talked to us about everything in a very candid way, and those kinds of trust building exercises is how I believe we can get direct funding from industry. This is just one example of a large petrochemical provider, but there are other options that include other folks at Silicon Valley. I do think this IUCRC that we have is one of the key ways we can go after larger centers, both in NSF and EFRCs. This QR code links to the course, and please encourage your students to join. So this is the key part of the talk. What do we need? I think buy-in from other departments would be nice for this course. I don't know enough about what is required to make a technology work. I know the chemistry part, I do not know the mechanical engineering part, I know a little bit of the data science part, but I don't know anything about the sensor part. You all know that, so getting your students be involved in this class would be a really beneficial thing to do. I think of this as a work in progress, but as a precursor to a student-led collaboration incubator. That sounds nice. Let's see if it works out. I can't manage logistics, okay? It's too hard. There are many small projects, so many no-cost extensions, money comes in late. I think having dedicated admin support, at least a part of it, would be extremely beneficial. For this COE meeting, for this May meeting, it would be nice to have some representation from the COE leadership. I think that would be really beneficial. And then this is the key idea. In my neck of the woods, one of the things that's really challenging is predicting material synthesis. We can predict properties of materials all day long, but I cannot tell my experimental friends what should they do in the lab to achieve that and validate it. Here are two things that are promising directions. I think going towards autonomous and robotic synthesis is an extremely powerful tool. The way we are going about this now is teaching an undergrad class so that they can do the experiments, and NSF likes that, but getting some experience with what can be done with autonomous experiments would be really nice. The other thing is we need to understand how materials are made. So going to the synchrotron is really hard. We can work with this company called Sigray. They provide high quality data. It's $1 million device. And I think they'd like to see this be more widely applicable and available in other universities. I think this is an NSF MRI opportunity. I don't do any experiments, right? So having some buy-in from the college here would be nice too. The idea is if we can start predicting how materials are formed rather than this trial and error approach, that's a very, very valuable strategy. The final thing, I have to plug this. This is a graduate mentorship initiative. This is a faculty-led program that I'm a part of, where think of it as a support group for faculty. So instead of just trying to expand our research program, it is valuable to make sure that the training that we provide to our graduate students gets the most out of that relationship. So I strongly encourage you to look into this. This is very helpful and it has changed the way I mentor my students. That's all that I have. Thank you so much.
Question, if anybody, there's a microphone too. This is really impressive vision and really in the spirit of collaboration. Yeah, but that's my laptop.
Oh, that is your laptop.
So thank you. That's really very inspiring vision moving forward. Great. There's your presentation here. So Priya is an assistant professor in chemical engineering, but she's also very brave because she is also a professor in the College of Biological Sciences and Microbiology and Molecular Genetics. She is the winner of the 2022 UC Davis Early Career Faculty Award for Creativity and Innovation, which is a campus-wide competition. She's a Hellman Fellow, and she's also the recipient of the 2020 College of Engineering Best Teaching Award in Chemical Engineering. So a real stellar career ahead of her that's just starting as well. So thank you, Priya.
All right. Thanks so much for the invitation. It's a real pleasure to be here and tell you all about what we've done with these really generous funds from the College of Engineering Dean's Office to advance our vision in biomanufacturing and pandemic preparedness. And so this is a team of COE faculty that we started with, myself, but also Karen McDonald, Soman Nandi, Erkan Seeger, Heather Bishel, Christina Davis, and Chi-Ming Tan. And what I want to tell you about first is what we think the problem is. And so during this pandemic, I think we all appreciated that there was a major problem with pandemic preparedness. And so being prepared for the next pandemic, which is absolutely going to come, is really important. And so as engineers, we faculty spent a lot of 2020, 2021 thinking about how we can contribute to this pandemic preparedness goal. And on the engineering side of things, there are some major barriers. The first is in diagnostics. These diagnostics require a lot of specialized equipment, which can be highly adaptable to new viruses because they're based on sequencing, so all you need to know is the genome sequence to start testing and diagnosing, or they are highly accessible because they're these rapid antigen tests that you can use at home, but they're less adaptable in that case because you have to have a lot of manufacturing in place for a specific virus to be able to accomplish that. On the therapeutic side, especially early in the pandemic, monoclonal antibodies are often your first line of defense, and so being able to produce those rapidly is really important, and distribute them to the places that need them the most. And then the same problem occurs with vaccine development further down the line during a pandemic. Getting vaccines manufactured in a way that can give you access to the entire world's population is a real challenge for something like an mRNA-based vaccine, which is what we're using for COVID-19 right now. And so thinking about how we can apply engineering and our expertise and strategic advantage in biomanufacturing at UC Davis to prepare for the next pandemic was something that we were thinking about when this call for next level research visions came out. And so our solution builds on a lot of the technologies from the faculty that I just highlighted in our original group, including biomanufacturing technologies, molecular insights to how viruses replicate and how that might relate to improved vaccine development, and also unique technologies for sensing and diagnostics. And so what I want to do is tell you how we used the funding that the COE so generously provide to advance some of these visions over the last several months and where we're headed next. And so the first project I want to tell you about is focused on scalable production of viral antigens in plant bioreactors, essentially. And this is work that was led by Karen McDonald and Somanandi and their graduate student, Katie Haddad. And so they work in Nicosia benthamiana, which is a great production, like one-time use bioreactor that's plant-based. And in these plants, they can generate really complex proteins that are highly applicable for monoclonal antibody therapies or for viral antigens that you could use for diagnostics or vaccination. And so one of the projects that they pushed forward on with this funding was producing the spike protein or the receptor binding domain of spike in N. benthamiana for SARS-CoV-2, which is a classically very challenging protein to produce. And so here are some initial results from some of the preliminary experiments that Katie did, where you can see a very pure production of this spike RBD protein. And you can see that you can get it in really high concentrations for the amount of plant material that goes into it. Now there's a lot of additional data that the McDonald-Nandi lab has produced in regards to this, but I really want to keep it high level for the purposes of this presentation. But this is one area where our expertise in biomanufacturing and leveraging novel production platforms like plants, which interface nicely with the rest of the UC Davis campus, really give us a strategic advantage in pandemic preparedness specifically. And so you could imagine having a distributed manufacturing platform where you can teach communities in low resource settings how to generate proteins of therapeutic value in plants that they can grow close by, right? Another platform that we're using for scalable production of viral antigens is the C1 filamentous fungus. So again, this is led by Karen McDonald and Somanandi, and also by a visiting professor, Yakir Ophir, and two graduate students in the McDonald-Nandi lab, Justin Wong and Varun Kaur. And so the C1 filamentous fungus is a new and up-and-coming microbial host for biomanufacturing. And in this C1 filamentous fungus, our group was able to produce the full-length spike protein, which is very challenging to produce at high titers, on milligram quantity scales. So what we've been able to show so far is that the protein that's produced in the C1 filamentous fungus shows binding kinetics. It shows activity functional activity that is very similar to a spike protein produced in a much more expensive and harder to work with mammalian system. So the binding affinities that we're seeing in this nanomolar range really closely reflect the true binding affinity of full-length spike from a human cell. And so this is really exciting because it opens the door for large-scale biomanufacturing of these viral antigens, not only for diagnostics, but also for protein-based vaccines, which would be much more accessible to the broader community where cold chain distribution is really challenging. This project has also trickled down into our curriculum. And what I don't have room to show you on the slide is that there are undergraduate students whose design project, their senior design project, is focused on leveraging C1 filamentous fungus to produce other relevant viral antigens. So another project that we pushed forward on in our quest for pandemic preparedness on the engineering side is developing scalable systems to study viral neuroinflammation. And so this was done by a graduate student in my group, Shah, and also done in collaboration with Eric and Siegel's group and a graduate student, Hai-Hun Kim. And so the Seeger group has this really novel system for studying neuroinflammation. And traditional neuronal tissue is a complex mixture of multiple cell types. And typically, people use a co-culture system that combine neurons and astrocytes in a single petri dish. But if you're really interested in studying the immune response in the brain, which is really important for aspects of long COVID, for example, what you need to include are these really important immune cells called microglia, which only exist in the brain. And so, using this triculture system, they've successfully reconstituted these 3 cell types using rat cortical cell triculture. And these white triangles here represent the microglia, which are absent in this co-culture system. And so, in combination with some of the large-scale spike protein production that we did in my own group, using a mammalian production model, we were able to test the neuroinflammation response and the impact on cell health in the co-culture versus the triculture system. And so here are some very preliminary results from those experiments with the Seeger lab, where on the y-axis, what we're looking at is a cytotoxicity response. So how unhealthy are the cells? And in the co-culture system, when we add the spike protein, there's no difference in cell health. But when we have a triculture system with those specialized immune microglial cells, we see an increase in that cytotoxicity once we add the spike protein. And so this is a very modest increase, I acknowledge, but this is the beginning of a very exciting avenue of research for both of our groups, where we can now study viral neuroinflammation for a lot of different neuroinvasive viruses, not just SARS-CoV-2. And making it a scalable system, which is something that engineers often think about, is really, really important because you can't study these systems using human cells, for example, or using in vivo models. They would be economically and materially impossible to accomplish. Okay. And then finally, some other ongoing research highlights include scalable production of novel coronavirus spike proteins to really test the prediction of emergence potential. And so this is in collaboration with some colleagues over in the College of Biological Sciences, Mariel Vasquez and Javier Arzuaga, who have predicted some coronavirus spike sequences that might be able to bind human ACE2. And wouldn't it be great if we could test that prediction experimentally? And so that's what we are working on with them currently. And then finally, we are also working to develop mechanistic models of virus replication, now in collaboration with Los Alamos National Laboratories. And one of the common chemical engineering concepts that we think about is how to accelerate reactions. And so when you have a reaction happening in solution, one way to accelerate it is by putting it on a surface. And
that's exactly what viruses do. They actually produce a lot of their viral genomes, and they accelerate that process by doing it on a two-dimensional membrane surface. And so these are the types of mechanistic details that no one has actually modeled for some really important biomedically relevant viruses, and that's what we're going to start tackling with lab. And so to summarize how the seed funding helped, it absolutely supported some shovel-ready projects in terms of supporting reagent purchases and student support. We were also able to host a workshop focused on biomanufacturing, and I shamelessly used Dean Corsi's term pandemic engineering. I'm stealing that officially now. And we hosted this workshop on pandemic engineering and for accessibility and community engagement, or PEACE. And we had stakeholders present at the workshop, including BARDA and close collaborators at Colorado State University. We've brought together new collaborations across COE campus and with the national labs using the seed funding. And I was also able to do a campus-wide pitch on using big data to drive antiviral drug development during the Imagine If event last fall quarter. And so I really thank Dean Corsi for giving me that opportunity. We've put in grant proposals using the preliminary data that I presented here that are still pending at NIH and NSF. We're also members of biomanufacturing consortia like Biomade and Nimble, which are great targets for future funding sources. And so what are the opportunities and challenges that we face now? We still need to work on improving diagnostics and surveillance tools to make them more adaptable for the broader audience. And we absolutely want to continue improving distributed manufacturing in mammalian cells. So I told you a story about plant biomanufacturing and filamentous fungus manufacturing, but we absolutely want to expand on our mammalian biomanufacturing as well. And then accelerating into the next phase, we really need to think about how to gain extramural funding for these different projects now that we have some preliminary data from NIH, NSF, but also these biomanufacturing consortia. And in the longer term, I absolutely agree with Ambar's sentiment that we can't be reactive, we have to be proactive and build that track record of collaboration through these multi-PI grants on the smaller scale, and then think about a center for pandemic engineering eventually. And so we as a faculty really need to think about, is this going to be focused on biomanufacturing because that is our strategic strength? Do we take a broader view that can pull in other aspects and other strengths of the campus as a whole? And how do we get the administrative support to make all of that possible? Because these large center grants are a huge administrative undertaking. And so carving out the time to not only create a vision, but execute on that vision will be important. So that's all I have to say. Thank you for your time.
Priya, I was really interested in your opportunities and challenges ahead. Let me get back to your opening slide where you had pictures of a couple of things that we need to get better at. One of them was a picture of the antibody. And I wonder if your team has thought much about how you're going to identify the appropriate antibodies in the future, and if that makes sense as part of your vision too. If it does, or you have ideas, I'll talk to you at the break about a few ideas.
Yeah, that's a great question. So I think there are a lot of groups who are doing antibody screening for high affinity monoclonal antibodies against various antigens. And so could you be strategic about it? Could you create an arsenal of antibodies that would work against different high-risk virus families, essentially? That's a really interesting proposition. I haven't considered it, but it's certainly worth trying. Yeah. And I imagine other people are already working. Yeah, but we should talk later. Okay, thank you.
Thank you. It's good that we're having a lot of conversation that's starting, because that's the goal of this event, is that things are going to move with us from here. And we've heard from 3 of our really amazing assistant professors, and now we're going to hear from one of our most accomplished colleagues in the campus. Professor Chen-Nee Chuah, who is the Child Family Professor in Engineering. She's a fellow of IEEE. She's the ACM Distinguished Scholar. She won a career award way back in 2003. She's the UC Davis Chancellor Fellow. She's the 2020 Advanced Scholar. And the 2021, she won the Outstanding Instructor Award. So we're really grateful for you as a colleague and look forward to hearing you. So,
First of all, I have to apologize. I'm not creative enough to find a way to squeeze 12 pictures onto the title slides because that's how many of the team members are. There are 7 of us from electrical and computer engineering, 3 from computer science, 1 from mechanical engineering, and 1 from biomedical engineering, which is part of this team. And then with a lot of awesome collaborators from across the causeway, from the School of Medicine, School of Nursing, the Mind Institute, and Alzheimer's Disease Center. So I just want to have a shout out to all of that, that unfortunately we don't have room to list all of their names here. All right, so let's start with what motivates us, right? So the reason we put this pitch together is that we see an opportunity to pursue innovations across the entire health and analytic pipeline, meaning start from designing wearable sensors that are non-intrusive to collect high-quality data that is pertinent to a lot of the disease studies and phenotyping, to applying signal and image processing techniques and data science and AI and ML to learn insights from them, and then to actually try to deliver these solutions in an affordable manner, right? Make it accessible, smart health services, truly accessible to all populations. And of course, in this pipeline, there are security and privacy issues that we need to address as well, especially if we are talking about portable solutions, right, to be deployed at home or in local clinics, and we are dealing with sensitive medical data. So I just want to kind of highlight this vision of where we are going with this figure on the right that I borrowed, from my young faculty, Ho Young Jeong, who joined our department just last year. And we would like to do not just kind of automated sensing and automated diagnostic, but you actually kind of close that loop to also do automated or personalized therapeutic delivery as well, right? So personalized delivery of health solutions. So our vision at the time was to help build a stronger partnership between COE and UCB's health campus. So we know that there is a long history of collaboration for biomedical engineering department, but we just see opportunities for including other departments as well, like my department, ECE, CS, and also academic engineering. So we want to have, we use actually a big chunk of the setup, the COE funding was to help build this synergy across the campus by developing our first next level research symposium that I'll talk about in the next slide. But the potential impact that we can see, first of all, obviously in hospital, because we have our own medical center, so a lot of our technology we can see the translation to actually using it in the clinical environment, but also in telehealth and mobile clinic, as well as in healthy aging and healthy technology as well. So part of the funding that we receive go into hosting this next level research forum on the health campus. Is a 1.5-day workshop. We have 52 attendees from COE, School of Medicine, and School of Nursing. So we have COE faculty give lightning talks about our technology, and we have UCDH speakers talk about their field perspective of what problems they are interested in solving. And then we have panel discussion with leadership. So Associate Vice Chancellor Henry Tan from Health Campus, and also Dr. Ashish Treja from the Health Information Health Chief Officer, as well as the Amazon speaker, who is basically part of the counterpart of the digital co-lab at UCB Health that set up the Cloud Innovation Center between UCBH and Amazon. To talk to us about actually health inclusion, health disparity issues as well. And then we have a roundtable and panel discussion on large disciplinary project and research directions. So one of the outcomes that comes out of this, right, is that I think we make our presence known at the UCBH campus.
which I'm very happy about, and I'll share with you some of the outcome from that forum. So for instance, after this forum, of course, it's a greet and meet. So we get to know people get to know us and our technologies. So some of our members, including myself, are invited to participate in large grants going out of health campus. So for example, there is an NIH Coordination Center U24 grant that went out that tried to recruit Asian American, Native Hawaiians, and Pacific Islanders, right, for some of this kind of scientific clinical research and other things that we can follow up with later on. So this is a huge effort. So I'm glad that Professor Tamayo, Philpott, and myself get to participate as a key personnel on these grants. And also there is a T32 training grant that went out as well, trying to train and target underrepresented groups by leveraging mentors from Davis and Sacramento. And so this is just one of the example outcome from the workshop. Now, research-wise, I also want to kind of share with you that I myself learned a lot from the health equity panels that was happening at the forum. So going into this forum, we already have an NIH-funded project on, and this is a collaborative project with my institute, trying to use the videos collected in their clinic to study autistic behavior of children. So we have 3-minute videos recording the interaction between the child and the provider. And at the time, right, when we started out this project, the motivation is to help her automate, not just trying to apply AI to predict autistic risk of the children, but also at the beginning, the data acquisition phase. The reason being, for years now, she actually has a trained personnel to manually annotate this video frame by frame. Which of this frame contain a behavior of interest to them, like whether or not the child is looking at an object, the child is smiling, or the child is actually vocalizing. And so we are replacing that with a computer vision-based algorithm or model to be able to automatically detect this behavior of interest from the video, which will cut down a lot of this training costs and labor-intensive implementation costs. Now, then from that conversation at the forum, we realized that, well, this is great, but this is inside the clinic at the Mind Institute. Right? So the family have to be able to go there to receive treatment for all these great technologies and benefits them. Right? So what happens if we can't go? And especially during the pandemic, we also run into the challenge of video visit. Right? Not all the families can do video visits because they don't have broadband internet connection. Right? So then we start to think about, okay, how can we bring some of this technology closer to the families? So how can we push this out to community clinic, for example, and eventually educate people at home, potentially with smartphones, right? So this has kind of motivated us to submit this SCH submission on equitable behavior analysis for autism spectrum disorder. So just to talk a little bit more about that, really our vision is to mitigate inequalities in autistic ASD-related diagnostic services and interventions. And as part of this effort, we are building custom-built cameras that are designed for these clinics in partnership with CART. CART is just the Center for Autistic and Related Disease organization. And so we are hoping that we can collect our own videos from applied behavior analysis treatment sessions of these children. And then we can actually start to build our own kind of knowledge about how do we apply the similar techniques that we actually developed for the NIH project, but apply to the new settings, new type of videos, trying to recognize more complex behavior like behavior aggression that are usually observed during this session, and they manually kind of count the frequency of it happening. And so with this cameras, now we can actually capture that interaction and apply computer vision to help analyze that behavior as well. Now, of course, we are dealing with video data, so very highly sensitive data. So we do worry about privacy, so we are trying to develop novel methods to generate synthetic multimedia data as well. which hopefully will capture the similar behavior, but then allow us to share it with other research groups, because then it's not raw videos that we are sharing. And then, obviously, we also have to tackle cost and balance issues, because we might not have a representative of all subpopulations. So this is one example of current activity that we are working on. And then some of my colleagues, Professor Wei-Jian Yang, Professor Radulaski, together with their collaborators, have also kind of pushed forward their research in the abdominal fetal oximetry project, and they have submitted grants to CPS and SCH programs as well as an NIH R&D fund. Right? And there's ongoing conversation about submitting large proposals around this maternity care, fetal care for this group. And then I just want to highlight also our new member, Professor Hu Yangjiang. He just joined our department last year, and so my symposium was the first symposium that he attended. I'm very happy about that. And so through that, he met a lot of collaborators, and he actually submitted a research proposal together with someone through introduction of Dr. Artish Treja on monitoring of patients' post-coronary intervention to reduce risk for recurrent cardiovascular events. And he's also a participant in a large interdisciplinary applications in neuroscience, trying to look at wireless activity-dependent tagging. And then he was invited to do like a presentation in the pediatric grant round to my collaborators as well, Professor Silvers and Lakshmi Shah. And so we are talking about applying some of this technology for real-time maternal and fetal monitoring. So it's very exciting, and I hope that that will also lead to yet another proposal submission. And then we have expanded our partnership beyond UC Davis as well. This is a recently funded noise UC partnership. It's a collaborative project with the Alzheimer's Disease Center. We're trying to leverage the existing effort that is funded by multi-UC campus to build a brain map. Right? So these are whole slide images of brain tissues that we looked at. And I mean, we have an existing kind of collaborative project with Dr. Darger going in, trying to apply deep learning network on gray matter, white matter partition, as well as to detect plaques that are hallmark of Alzheimer's disease, so that can help her perform better phenotyping of the Alzheimer's disease.
Engineering. She's a fellow of the American Society of Mechanical Engineers. She also is a career award winner, which is a common theme you can see amongst our recipients. Hers was in 2007. She has also won the Amelia Earhart International Award. And she received the 2022 Citation of Excellence from UC Davis for her work in diversity, equity, and inclusion. And she's been a real leader on campus in that. And she also won the 2021 College of Engineering Lab Safety Award, which we're very grateful to her because she showed us how to get our labs back up and running with COVID protocols in place. So much you've done for the college. Thanks for learning.
Thank you, Rosa. Good afternoon. As you heard, I'm Valeria La Saponara. I'm the PI of this project, and Michele Barbato sitting there is the co-PI. And I have also collaborator Carney. So Michele is from Civil and Environmental Engineering, and Carney is from Mechanical and Aerospace Engineering, and she's one of our newest faculty. I have a team of many people that up to this point, research engineer Chuah 1. I have graduate students, Marina and Alejandro Ruiz, who are not here. Undergraduate students, Fernando Hernandez Sanchez. We have Nicolas Gallo and Dominic Snupel sitting over there. Connor Prescott, Shivani Torres-Lal, and Magdalene Montoya. So the motivation is the fact that wind energy is supposed to be clean, is not clean, and is not sustainable as of now. So in the sense that it uses materials that are causing the deforestation of the Amazon forest, and they're causing illegal logging in indigenous lands in Ecuador, because the wind turbines are built using balsa wood for the blades, and the deforestation of the Californian forest is basically one of the results of that, because that's the only place on the earth that has balsa wood. So we would want to replace balsa wood with bamboo, which is the fastest growing plant on earth. And we also don't want to use fossil-based plastic, so we want to use a material that looks like a polymer, but it's actually a low carbon footprint material. It's based on mycelium, which is the roots of mushroom plants, well, mushroom animals, fungi. And this material would not end up in a landfill. It would be fully biodegradable, sequester carbon into the soil, and not be a contaminant for soil and water. Eventually, we will design for structural efficiency and radon transparency. We want to meet the goals of the state of California that sees wind energy as an integral part of the California electricity portfolio according to California Energy Commission. We're also using agricultural biomass that is repurposed to feed the mycelium, and this is a good way to use it instead of burning it. So mycelium is this white substance that's on the left. It's actually the roots of mushrooms, the roots of fungi particularly, and it's colonizing this biomass, which is created with almond shells and cover crops. And we're using it to build this composite material that is part of the wind turbine that you see built on the right. And we have decided to come up with this idea to see if it was even possible. Bamboo is an antifungal material, so it has been challenging to find a way to attach the mycelium to the bamboo, and we've been able to do that. So you can see the skeleton of the blade being built with these panels of mycelium composites. We're also using biodegradable glue that is based on pine resin. So we were able to do aerodynamic modeling using the rotor that is off the shelf. It's 400 watts, $270 turbine, both of Amazon, like many things in our project. And we were able to do the aerodynamic modeling using this open source software called QBlade. Based on the specs of the wind turbine rotor, we were able to get an idea of what kind of blade design to use. We got the airfoil collars, and we also are doing turbine simulation that we're going to verify to see what kind of power we can draw with this turbine. So you're seeing a table. This photo was taken by the tallest guy at the lab, over there on top of the table to show all the different parts and the construction techniques. We have also 3D printed the attachment to the rotor, and the sleeve that you see here is actually repurposed polyester because you need an aerodynamic surface. If you keep the bamboo, it's going to break the flow all the time. Can you take this off? So this is Chuah. One is the research engineer, and instead of showing you the video in the lab, we can show it here. So yeah, we had to balance the other blade. So this is the only one that we removed, and we had to balance it, otherwise you wouldn't be able to rotate it properly. And just yeah. To fund for personnel, the summer stipend of a PhD student who started doing the aerodynamics modeling, Shrina Garter, as well as the part-time stipend of Chuah, who is a research engineer, also works with another professor. He gave us visibility and opportunities to recruit students. In fact, I think most of the students are up here got on board because they like the idea of working on sustainable engineering. In terms of opportunities, I see this kind of project for distributed wind energy applications. So up to 10 kilowatts, we would like to make sure that we have reliable and affordable power for rural communities, users that decide to be off the grid or have to be off the grid because the cost of power is too expensive for them, remote research and military stations, and also for disaster relief. If I think about the situation in Puerto Rico, where after the hurricanes, they basically had to invest in solar energy, and this could be another type of renewable energy that could be added to their portfolio of really serious power needs. There is a program that is sponsored, that was just completed, sponsored by the National Renewable Energy Laboratory of the Department of Energy and Sandia to look at wind power as an opportunity for military and disaster relief opportunity. In terms of challenges, we want to make sure that this is a rugged and durable system. We need to see how fast can it go without breaking apart and flying off campus, first of all, but also nominal service conditions, how efficient can we make it. In terms of manufacturing, this is right now labor intensive, so we want to find out how to reduce manufacturing costs for scalability. And of course, we're very grateful to the UC College of Engineering Next Level Research team who sponsored us. We had a student coming for an internship program this summer. It was supported by Office of Graduate Studies. We had additional people that were involved, former undergraduate student. The high school student that we hosted turned out to be the daughter of somebody from California Department of Water Resources. An engineer from that group came up with the idea of using this particular biodegradable glue because we were trying to really be low carbon footprint as much as possible. This concludes my talk. 10 minutes in. Any questions? Thank you.
Any questions from the audience? I had a question that was emailed to me from you. And this mycelium is a structural material that has come up a lot in recent years. And it's a very exciting opportunity for construction. But it's very hard to produce on large scale. So there was a question about how your almond shell growing technique could scale up.
Okay, so I would say most of the research that I've done it in my kitchen using an Instant Pot that was excellent sterilization, basically replacing an autoclave. So the main thing is to keep the biomass sterile, and because you cannot keep it sterile for a very long time, you would have to sterilize every so often. And if that process is scalable, then there is a possibility of scaling up the entire process. I mean, if I can do it in my kitchen and I have jars occupying dedicated fridges in my house, I think that this could be definitely a scalable technique eventually. But we're also looking at the cost of this product is still going to be expensive, but it's going to be it's going to be offset by the fact that most of this blade is completely biodegradable, so it does not pollute air and soil. So how do you quantify the cost of greenhouse gases, and how do you quantify the cost of contamination in soil and water? So I know that this will not do that. Then I think eventually when people start looking at the cost of health and climate change versus making money out of this, eventually they will decide that this would be a valuable opportunity. So I hope that that answered the question of the email. So it is scalable. It will take time.
Very inspiring.
Thank you. I have a table full of some of the gadgets that we came up with. These are multiple steps of the process. Thank you.
Who was a co-PI on Valeria's grant, and Valeria's co-PI on Michele's. So Michele is another one of our very august senior faculty members. He's a professor in civil and environmental engineering. He's a fellow of the American Society of Civil Engineers. He's a fellow of the Engineering Mechanics Institute. He's a fellow of the Structural Engineering Institute. He's won several Best Paper Awards, Outstanding Reviewer Awards, and he's won the 2020 ASCE Walter Hoover Civil Engineering Research Prize. And Michele is also head of climate for the UC-wide citrus efforts. Thank you so much, Michele.
Good afternoon. Can you all hear me? Yes. So, as Raisa was saying, this is a project that we've been developing in collaboration with Valeria, but I think it's very important also to highlight our PhD student, Merab Nodei, that is really the engine of a lot of the work that is being done. I didn't list all of the undergraduate students that are working in the lab and contributing to this project. There are 14 undergraduate students in my lab. There are another big group of undergraduate students in Valeria's lab. But again, I want to acknowledge first of all the work that our undergraduate and graduate students are doing that are really pushing forward our knowledge and what we can do. Also I want to relate this project with the strategic research initiative at the college level. This research addresses directly the strengthening climate resilience, strategic research impact, but also the two cross-cutting teams of technologies for the greater good and intelligent system and automation. So what are we doing? We are trying to use 3D printing with soil to build houses and buildings that are affordable, sustainable and safe under extreme environments. What is the reason of doing this research? That first of all, the need for houses. We have an expected need of more than 2 billion new homes in the next 50 to 80 years, just to address the increasing population, the expected increase in population, as well as the improvement in standard of living across the world. That's a huge number of houses that we need to build. And we need to do it in a way that is sustainable. Right now, the construction industry is one of the major producers of CO2 and other greenhouse gases. 40% is the estimate of the overall construction industry. So we need to bring that down. We cannot keep building things the same way that we've been building it in the last 50 to 100 years. There is also a negative feedback loop here that not only we need to reduce greenhouse gases to mitigate climate change, but also we have that climate change is already increasing the risk associated with the different natural hazards. And so we need to have buildings that are more sustainable, but at the same time also more resilient to the different types of natural hazards. Preliminary studies, previous expertise and experience with the soil construction has actually shown that we can have houses that are resilient to hurricanes, tornadoes, earthquakes, and more recently wildfires. In fact, one of our research has shown that by using earthen blocks for construction, we can obtain a material that is highly resistant to fire. This is the comparison of one of our earth block and one of the pieces of wood, 2x4, that is used for normal construction of houses. You can see when they are subjected to a 3400 Fahrenheit flame from a propane torch, the different type of behavior. One is completely torched, the other one is just changing a little bit color. We actually have some specimens here that were tested in our lab under high temperature, and we found that our earth blocks are getting stronger and stronger as you subject them to prolonged period of time under more severe fire conditions. So very promising beginning, but now we want to also minimize the labor involved in building these houses so that it can be economically feasible and can become really available to everybody in a way that is equitable and that allows us to find the goal of climate justice. A few more things. In addition to being able to build in extreme environments here on this planet, we are also looking at the usage of 3D printing with local materials for potential extraplanetary exploration and weldings. It's a long shot probably, but it is what we are also envisioning as one of the possible application of the technology we are working on. In terms of multidisciplinarity, right now the team is quite small. It's me, Valeria mainly, with our expertise on earth and construction and 3D printing, but we really want to involve more of the college and beyond. As Raisa said, I'm also the director of the Citrus Climate Initiative over the 4 campuses of UC Berkeley, UC Davis, UC Merced, UC Santa Cruz. We have had a few projects that were also supported by this institute. Within that institute, within the campus, we are trying to build a group of people, maybe it will become a center or something, that is addressing the problem of climate change in their complexity, in their different levels, from the individual building to what is happening at the regional level, because these are really wicked problems that need to be addressed through the collaboration across different disciplines. Some of the results that these seed funding, we are very grateful from the college to invest in our research, that allowed us to achieve. Here, a lot of the expenses were purchasing the 3D printer. We didn't want to start really from scratch and build everything by ourselves, but we are focusing more on how to use a different material than the one that is typically used, because most of the 3D printers that are available right now for constructions are really focusing on concrete and cement. The reason to avoid concrete and cement is, again, reducing the carbon footprint, but also being able to use what we have under our feet to build our own dwellings. We had challenges, as when you start something new, we are all familiar with how research goes. So our first contract for the 3D printer was with a company that was proposing a technology we were very interested in, based on sintering instead of extrusion, in a way that we don't need any type of binder, including water. Unfortunately, that technology did not pan out. The company was not able to deliver the printer in time. The printer was supposed to arrive in August, then in October we had to kind of go back to the drawing plan and come up with a different printer, and we received finally our printer only in January. So everything that we have been able to do up to this point was done in 2.5 months. And again, here I want to point out how great our graduate students and undergraduate students are with their effort. We also had to use other resources because everything that is experimental ends up being more expensive than we plan to. There are some synergies with the existing local lab fees project, for which I am PI, that was also focusing on earth and construction under flight conditions. I had to use my startup to complete the support for Barbato, for my PhD student. And more recently, we have received funding from the UC Davis Institute of the Environment through the Faculty Fellow and Sustainability Scholars Awards, which also will allow us to employ even more of our graduate students. What have we done so far? So in these 2.5 months, we have figured out our hardware. We have resolved the issues with the software, and we have started printing out finally some small specimens. Here on the table I have some examples. Actually the circular ones were printed this morning, so they are fresh out of printing. We have done quite some investigation on materials, soil cement mixtures, where the soil is the main ingredient. We have also figured out good compositions in terms of cement and water, and we have explored the use of supplementary cementitious material, again another ingredient that allows us to remove cement and improve our carbon footprint. We are working on using geopolymers and on testing protocols. And actually, these two darker circular printout that we have were done with sodium silicate and other supplementary cementitious material, so it is fundamentally a geopolymer. What are our challenges? There are a lot of existing challenges before we can go to production. We are working on our hardware and the pump that we have purchased for larger scale elements. We figured out that we need to have a better understanding of the rheology of our materials, so additional equipment for which I'm trying to find funding. We are investigating the different aspects of the materials. I'm not going to read everything through these, but one of the important things is we want to add natural fibers to the construction to reinforce internally the material without having to add steel reinforcement. And different issues with prototyping. But we are already able to do more and more complex shapes and larger print. So day after day, I'm amazed by the new results that we are starting to get. In addition to these challenges, there is also another one that is space. Are getting more and more equipment, and it takes space. And lab space is really at the premium in the college and across campus. So that will be also something that will need to be resolved somehow. In terms of opportunities, we are participating in 3 different using climate action funding proposals that are related, 2 of which are highly related with the 3D printing. We are exploring, allow me the pun, the possibilities for funding that is coming from extraplanetary exploration. We are working a lot on resistance of to fire in extreme conditions, which are again possible sources of funding for our research. The focus on sustainable housing is one of the major points of these researches, so we really started from that. But in addition to having sustainable housing, this technology also can be used for rapid housing construction after catastrophic events. So rapid deployment of temporary structure or even non-temporary structure after catastrophic events. And so there are additional opportunities not only for funding but also for doing something for the greater good that is connected with the usage of this technology. And I'm going to stop here. I think I'm a little bit over my time, but if you have any question, I'll be very happy to respond to them. Thank you for your attention.
We have a question.
I have a question.
Ellen has one.
Okay. When do you think we will have the technology for 3D
Sorry,
printing?
I cannot.
Is it on?
When do you think we will have the technology for 3D printing, like a big scale perhaps, like in terms of technology maturity?
So the 3D printer that we have has the geometrical capabilities of building walls that are up to 6 feet wide and 6 feet tall. So right now we are focusing on the material side because the material composition is really connected with the potential hardware that we have available. Obviously, with additional funding, you can build bigger 3D printer, or you can purchase bigger 3D printer. Icon has developed recently a printer that can print two-story buildings with 100 feet each side, but that goes for 12 million a pop, so it's a little bit down the line once we get to larger scale. But I think that for starting the research, arriving to the scale of 6 feet by 6 feet would be a good starting point, and that is what we can potentially do with the printer we have right now.
Thank you. Great work. I just wanted to ask, I've noticed in my house that the corners are very difficult to cool or heat. And I was wondering if there's any relationship between, doing maybe simpler shapes with rather than angular shapes and complex shapes, with the amount of energy it takes to cool them, heat them, etc.
That's actually a very interesting question that gives me also an additional prompt. In this presentation, I focused mainly on embodied energy, but this type of material, soil, has also a very high thermal capacity that allows a better performance in terms of energy for heating and cooling. In addition, the 3D printing process is done exactly to free people from the scatter shape. So I cannot respond exactly on the effect of rounding the corner in terms of energy efficiency, but I can definitely talk about the capability of both being able to remove the limits in terms of geometry and improving the performance with respect to the typical materials that we are using right now. Just to give you an idea, with the different technology that is earth block masonry, it is possible to reduce the energy requirements in terms of heating and cooling by 30 to 70% with this range that is fundamentally depending on the climate where the house is built. So if you add on top of that the freedom of having more efficient shapes and maybe having air pockets that are built inside the walls to increase even more the energy efficiency, this could be a very good double advantage of having something that you can build fast, quickly, cheaply, and also very energy efficient.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
So this brings us to our last short presentation, and then we're going to have a coffee break. And our final presenter is another one of our very senior accomplished faculty members, Professor Vinod Narayanan. And Vinod is a professor in mechanical and aerospace engineering. He's also the director of the UC Davis Western Cooling Efficiency Center. So he knows a lot about running the ORUs on his campus. You can ask him questions about that. He's also a fellow of the American Society of Mechanical Engineers. He's also a career award winner from 2008. He has won the Outstanding Leadership Award from the American Society of Mechanical Engineers, and he has several very large DOE grants that he's been running. So thank you so much for joining us today.
Hello everybody. My talk is going to be a little different than everyone else because I'm more of a facilitator for this pillar than, and so our lead was Adam Bullock. He's on leave, so I have stepped in to take over. But whatever are the faults of that is mine, not his. Julia Fan has been one of the participants in our research, and Jerry Woodall, Majdi, Abu Najam, and the land and air and water resources, and electrical engineering, Jerry, and Matt Ellis in chemical engineering. So those are the core faculty in our group. The graduate student who got funding is Jerry and Majdi's student, Anshu Patil, and she's been working, I'll show you what she's been working on. There are two, so let me go back to the motivation here. what we're trying to address is we have a lot of renewables coming online in the grid, and the renewables are intermittent, so there's a need for storage if you want to completely eliminate the use of fossil or nuclear. So obviously that's not anything new, we know that. There's been a lot of effort in the battery storage area, so that electrical storage. But we asked ourselves the question, is there a better or cheaper way to store energy in a different form? So Jerry Woodall and Marty have been working on a high temperature latent heat battery. So we call that MHB. And it is basically a aluminum silicon eutectic that has a melting temperature, phase change temperature from solid to liquid of about 577 degrees Celsius. And so a large part of our focus has been in this group to look at ways of employing that phase change material in thermal storage. The second part is one that's led by Julia's group that I'm not 100% familiar with, and this was something that was told to me by Adam, so I'm not going to spend too much time on that because I don't know 100% of what's there. But the idea is shown on the right side at the bottom. The idea is to get energy from cellulosic biomass. And the barrier, the typical way of doing that is shown on the top there. And you need enzymes to convert the cellulosic biomass to sugars. And that enzyme is expensive, and that's the barrier to production and technology. So Julia's group is looking at a different way to look at engineered fungi to take the cellulosic biomass and convert it to sugar acids and then do fermentation to the next step. So, and the sugar acids have apparently an advantage. Engineered fungi are not as expensive as the enzymes that you use in the upper process, and so those are all advantages in that process, and so Julia's group is working on that aspect. But coming back to the latent heat battery, there's a lot of information put out here, but let me explain to you the challenge of high temperature storage. You have materials that are either in single phase, so either liquids or solids like rocks, and you need to bring energy to them and store the energy in there, extract the energy from there, and go to the process or the application. Now, if you have a phase change material, then the energy density is much larger, so your storage medium can be much smaller in size, the exchanges can be smaller. And the nice thing about the material that Jerry and Marty have been working on, the aluminum silicon eutectic, is that it's got a high volumetric and mass energy density, so you can see the comparison between aluminum silicon eutectic and then the typical salts that I use in storage right now, potassium nitrate, sodium nitrate, or a combination of them. That's called solar salt. And those are shown over there. So the temperatures are higher, the energy densities are higher, and aluminum silicon has a much higher thermal conductivity. So this has always been an issue with energy storage, especially with phase change. If you think about PCMs that are used in much lower temperatures, like paraffins, they have very low conductivity. So you have to do something like put fillers or nanotubes or things like that to increase their conductivity. But aluminum silicon already has a very high conductivity, so you can charge, discharge energy from that much more rapidly. The cost of aluminum silicon is widely abundant, so it's just 41 cents per kilogram, and it's a very abundant resource. The last one shows that you have trillions of kg of this material available, and there's not going to be a resource issue like you have for lithium and nickel and so on for electrical storage. So all these have made us look at this material a little bit more. Initially, so some challenges or thoughts. Initially, our direction was to go with this latent heat battery and look at residential applications. So take this, for example, battery, and when electricity is cheap, melt this material and keep it there stored, and when the prices are high, then we use this and convert it to electricity by thermoelectric or something similar and use that for the needs of the house. If you wanted it for space heating or water heating, you can directly take that heat and use it for that purpose without converting it to electricity. So that was the initial intent, and we had meetings and we discussed the potential. And so if you want to do this for residential or building purpose, it's very hard to compete with photovoltaics and battery, because battery storage, you directly store electricity and you can use that to convert it, use it for a heat pump, you can use it for a heat pump water heater, and it's got for an air conditioner. Whereas if you store it in latent heat form, converting from high temperature heat to electricity is a very low efficiency process, maybe 10%. And that's not going to compete with what we already have. So we were working on these ideas and we thought, okay, let's look at industrial applications, because decarbonization of industry is the hard part. We've already made a lot of progress in decarbonizing buildings, heat pumps and such, electrification of buildings and heating. We've already made a lot of progress in transportation, battery, hydrogen, and so on. But industrial decarbonization remains hard because there are processes at different temperatures, different heat inputs, industry is located at different locations. So that is a really hard problem, and DOE is spending a lot of effort right now to tackle that last bit, last 1/3 of the decarbonization rate. That's industrial decarbonization. So we have moved away from building applications towards industrial decarbonization, looking at what we can do with that 577 degrees Celsius. So Anshu has been working with Jerry and Majdi on demonstrating that you can take this aluminum silicon eutectic and store it such that you have low heat loss, because you don't want a storage device which is leaky. You want to store it for several hours, if not some days, and then use it when you need it. So she's been looking at things like on the right side you'll see a vacuum flask, a typical vacuum flask, but can we use a vacuum insulation and retain the temperature inside this phase change material for a longer time. So inside you'll see a cross section of that layers of insulation. You have first of all, aluminum silicon is the issue with working with high temperatures is that it's not easy. So it is reactive. It's corrosive to stainless steel, so you need that aluminum ceramic layer. So you have an alumina layer, you have stainless steel, then you have a silver coating to reduce reflectivity or emissivity, sorry. And then you have a vacuum with stainless steel. So she's modeled that layer and seen what the heat losses are radiatively, so you have some estimates of conduction, radiation losses over a 30-minute period. She's taken this aluminum silicon eutectic through cycles, I think several tens of cycles in the furnace to see that if there is any degradation in the latent heat capacity of this material, and there was none over the limited cycling that's been done. So she's in the process of assembling that experiment and putting an electrical heater in there to melt the material, and then show that we can get the melting, the freezing, and the losses under control. So it's still a work in progress, but the idea is to have a demonstration, physical demonstration on a small scale of what this latent heat battery might look like. And then we are, as a bigger team, we are looking at different applications for this, and we have been writing proposals. So some of the proposals that we've written, the first one is to the Vesicle Foundation, as I see a lot of you guys have written to that foundation. But the idea here is this. If you look at over here, this is the aluminum silicon, this yellow, the orange part here, that's the latent heat battery. The basic idea is, okay, can you get biochar that's made from solar? So solar biochar, and biochar has has good properties in terms of water retention and so on, so it can be an additive to the soil. And Marjolie's role is to look at the properties of the biochar and see how it improves the properties of the soil. So what we want to do is we want to take solar energy from our 7-meter parabolic dish, which is on the south side of campus, and couple it to the device that you see on the right side, which is what we're going to be focusing on. So we are getting energy from the dish, we are heating up this aluminum silicon butyric that's shown in the orange, this is the outer sleeve, it melts, and the biochar reactor is in the middle there. So the idea is that you only have sun for 7-8 hours of the day. Can you use the latent heat battery to run this process 24/7 or for a longer time than when sun is on? So, so that you get to a continuous biochar production for this arrangement. The second concept paper that we submitted was led by Westinghouse and included Oak Ridge National Labs. They came and contacted us and were wondering if we would be a part of their team. They were interested in, the idea was to use their alumina forming steel. They have a way to 3D print alumina forming steels. And we were at the point where we were thinking, this is a good material, but it has reactive issues with stainless steel. So we need an alumina layer. And it was a nice coupling of ideas because they print stainless steels with an alumina layer. And so you don't need to add ceramic coating or anything like that if you 3D print that. So we have written a concept paper with them at Oak Ridge on 3D printing heat exchangers for aluminum silicon latent heat batteries using this idea. And the third and fourth are also RESTIC proposals written by Julia's group for the engineered so to convert from cellulosic biomass to sugar acids. So how did it help? For the bioenergy, there was a graduate student in Julia's group who was funded to collect initial data and do literature review that went towards the proposals that she wrote to RESTIC Foundation. I already mentioned Anshu was supported for the thermal energy storage, and she's putting together that experiment in the lab. I mentioned the proposals and concept papers that were submitted. And most importantly, I didn't know that Jerry Woodall and Marjorie were working on latent heat battery, because I'm a heat transfer phenomenon. And I had no idea that they were electrical engineering and that air and water resources, and they were working on things that I'm interested in. So it got us together and started thinking about ideas that I think will help us move to the next step in a positive way. Opportunities and challenges. I mentioned some of the challenges and directions that we took, but I wanted everyone in this room to be aware of some of these really important initiatives at the Department of Energy. They are called energy earth shots. There are multiple of them. There's a hydrogen shot, there's an industrial heat shot, and that's what we are thinking about. So there's a how do you do industrial decarbonization? That's a big question there. So there's an industrial heat shot. The battery that's shown there is the long duration storage shot. How do you have electrical storage and long duration? How do you have chemical storage and long duration? Thermal storage, long duration. How do you create, basically, how do you load shift so that you can take care of that storage problem? How do you do bidirectional charging? All those are addressed in that long duration storage shot. Very recently, DOE's solar office has come out with a solar thermal fuels and thermal energy storage request for information, where again the target is on industrial decarbonization, chemical storage, thermal storage as well. And then for the biomass to energy, Julia's group is looking at Biden administration's National Biotechnology and Biomanufacturing Initiative, and the DOE's Bioenergy Technologies Office. So we are going to be continuing this discussion and hopefully targeting some or all of these costs. That's all I have. Thank you.
Any quick question for Vinod? We have a question right here.
I was just wondering how you plan to use was wondering how you plan to use the thermal energy contained in the phase change material to be applied and used then again as electrical. Will it be like fluid loops or some sort of conductor?
That's exactly right. We have moved away from the idea of using that 577-degree heat to convert it directly to electricity. We are rather going to use it for industrial processing. So for example, there are a lot of industries, think about food, in the food processing, sterilization, that use heat, mainly in the form of steam, in the 200 to 250 degrees Celsius range. There are a lot of industrial drying applications, like chemical drying, paper drying, and so on, that use industrial heat in the higher temperature range. And then there's of course the lime and steel and so on that are much higher temperatures than that. So we are trying to still find applications that fit that sweet spot for 577 degrees for heat, industrial heat. I actually have a different project where I'm looking at solar energy and how you capture energy from the sun and convert it to heat. And we are working with a company that's looking at applications in the 500 to 800 degrees Celsius, so the latent heat pattern will fit in perfectly for those applications.
Thank you. So let's give all of our presenters a big hand. We're 5 minutes late, so we're going to start the panel at 3:15. So there's some snacks and some coffee, so please help yourself.